You're watching Living and Thriving with Rustie, and I'm Rustie, and I'm super excited because I'm doing a world tour all over pretty much every country you can imagine. About 175 guests total. We get to learn how other people live and thrive and get through their storms, and that's what the show's about. So I'm super excited to introduce today Dr. Singal. Hopefully I say your name correctly. I've heard so many wonderful things about this young lady. I heard she's quite the powerhouse, so no pressure, no pressure. How are you?
You know, when people say no pressure, that's when the pressure starts,
I
right?
know. Aren't I mean? I don't know if you were warned. I'm like the meanest show host ever.
No, I've listened to some of your interviews, and they've been so inspiring and so thoughtful, so deep. And I always tell people, don't compare yourself to others, right? Because we all have our own journey. But
I love
women that you've interviewed.
I just, we hear so much about the crap and bad people and bad things, and I can't put my sword down. I honestly think we have more beautiful, good people on this planet than we cherish. I get goosebumps because I get so excited about doing this, I get to travel around the world and meet beautiful people that are doing beautiful things.
Absolutely.
And I get to share that. And it's so cool because who knew? I think the cosmic fabric of the world, what keeps us together are the regular everyday people that are doing wonderful things in their community. Absolutely. And to me, they're more special than any sports star or singer, because these are everyday, altruistic, authentic, delicious people, and so I'm really excited to have you on the show. Your assistant
Thank you.
told me that I'm just going to adork you, that you're so that one.
I feel that people come into each other's lives for a reason, and whether we're able to verbalize what those reasons are, they're no less meaningful, right? And it's a real pleasure. So thank you for even having the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, really, I'm so excited. So did I pronounce your name wrong, or did I totally botch it?
I think you said it fine. Manisha Singal.
Perfect. And you're a doctor of what?
So I'm board certified in internal medicine, but my practice has been in critical care. So basically I've been an intensive care doctor for almost 20 years.
It's so funny because the person that I had on before you actually wrote a book specifically for nurses and self-care, because especially in that high intensity environment, you don't take care of yourself very well.
No, and whether you're a nurse, a respiratory therapist, anyone, we like to say it's patient-centric. So every individual that has any touch points on the patient's care and experience, we say they're all specialists, they're all meaningful, but it's tiring, it's draining when you find yourself in situations often where you can only do so much and sometimes not much at all. And how do you find the relevancy, and how do you maintain your mission when you're caring in a team? And oftentimes we have to look at each other, right? And say, look, thank you for what you're doing. I'm right here with you. We're all here together. We're going to have those moments where it's going to be really tough. And then you have to find your center and have to support each other. So I really applaud that she wrote that book to really speak to, when we talk about the front line, you can't be more frontline than nurses.
Yeah, that's I have a lot of friends that are in the medical field, and my healing path is different, but we're all doing the same work, picking up the pieces and putting them back together and trying to glue people back together,
That's a way to put it, yes.
I mean, that's really the truth, especially if you're dealing with trauma and long grieving periods. There's a lot of glue and stitches and Band-Aids and
that's what you can see, right?
Yeah.
That's only the physical. It's the internal. That's a whole different world.
And I think that in the medical field, it's even harder because I don't think that the training is for self-care. It's for outside care. And it's not
Yes.
really, at least from what I understand, it's not really a spiritually driven training either, meaning
Yeah.
you really have to be good with you, because you're the one who's going to go home and relive
Oh,
what you
absolutely.
experienced.
Um, I can't say it better than you. I'll just share a real quick story. When I was in medical school, what they do is you rotate in different arenas of healthcare to see what fits, right? And to get that well-rounded training. So I remember when I was doing my psychiatric rotation, I have to tell you that was an experience, because as medical students, we stood outside of the circle, and the individuals that needed the care were in the inside circle with the psychiatrist or the specialist. So we'd go through this entire session, and it's like, okay, fine, on to the next class, right? And I remember going to the dean of my school. I went to medical school here at George Washington University, and I said, there's a group of us. We don't know what to do with our emotions. We're outside of the circle. No one brings us into the circle. And there's no training for how do we handle our own emotions. Because we're all humans, right? We're all connecting. And you're right. Oftentimes the best teachers really just experience and you evolve. And that's been not just my journey, it's been everybody's journey, but I can speak to my own journey. But I've gone through and I'm still evolving. But yeah, they don't teach you that, whether it's nursing school or medical school or whatever type of school. It's really once you're in that arena, then you start living and learning.
Yeah, and I would think it would be very difficult at first, especially for people who haven't built up enough of a thick skin to handle some of the traumatic situations. You're dealing with people that are in pain, people that are scared, people that are hurting, and there's no magic wand. It's how quickly can I think on my feet to make this situation a little easier for everybody. And so, yeah, I mean, medical, for all of the things that the Western medical misses, I think there's a lot that we don't talk about. And I'm really glad that COVID has happened, because I think it's becoming a much more honest and open conversation. I think we take a lot of things for granted. And I think, the understanding and compassion of what our frontline medical staff, ambulatory, paramedics, so on,
Absolutely,
that they're going through is an eye opener for some people who just took it for granted.
it's we have so many episodes in our history where you would think, you would think that people would recenter themselves and find what matters to them most. Look at 9/11. Everybody had an emotional connection to that or known of some loss, and you would have thought that something, again, I'm talking about the United States, but something like that would have put us all on a path of civility, of looking out for each other, of whatever it may be. And it was there for a little while, right? And maybe that's the way, our brains protect ourselves. It's not that you want to wake up every morning with a heavy heart or a heavy mind. It's not about doom and gloom, but it's about absorbing, understanding the moment, just learning from it, and maybe making a few tweaks how we engage with each other, right?
I think that it's an evolutionary process, and you're a doctor, so I can talk to you straight. Things take time to grow and evolve,
Right.
and we regenerate our own cells and our molecular values, and in 7 years we get a new pair of lungs. Most people don't know that because we don't articulate or talk about good health and good spirituality and what makes a good human. We talk about what makes a rich human, what makes a famous human,
Sure.
what makes a valued member of society because of the car label or their shoe label. And I I am the only redhead in my family.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay, that's
and
interesting.
well, my mother's Cherokee Indian, so in
Uh,
the Native American world, having a redhead child is a spiritual sign. And I was just assigned to beat on because I was wild and untamed. Um, but what I've learned throughout my own experiences is I'm very stubborn. And God has had to hit me with a 2x4 many times for me to go, oh, I probably shouldn't do that anymore, huh? And so when I look at people and I look at their repeated behaviors, I kind of sit back like the mom that I am, just natural mom, and go, huh, you'll get it one day. And
yeah.
prospectively, if we had more of that kind of perspective, I think we'd be a lot more gentle with our reactionary behaviors. And it's really quite phenomenal what's happening during this COVID period,
Yeah.
because as I travel around the world, I find that a lot of people are misconstruing their personal grief for anger, for fear, and you being a frontline doctor, you know exactly what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
It's, yeah.
People become so afraid of what they can't wrap their head around. And this, you can't wrap your head around because there's just so much chaos in between.
Um, we can talk volumes on that. And, already you know, um, I don't say just in healthcare, but again, that's the lens that I'm coming from. There's already so many emotional levels when someone needs care. And I tell people that everyone in the same family is going to have a different emotion. Everyone has their own fingerprint, right, to the response. But I mean, from fear to anger to distrust to, it's massive. I mean, anyone who's in healthcare, you have to very quickly get up to speed to think that it's not just what you were trained for, but you have to be holistic in your approach to your patients. And a common phrase of mine when I talk to families, because they're coming, the physician may have their agenda, oh, it's about the lungs and the heart and the kidneys. And the family's like, wait a minute, but what about that toenail? No one's, taking care of the feet. Or they have a little bit of knowledge on whatever that may be. Actually, one of my patients or one of my families coined Dr. Google, right? So I use that all the time now. They go to Dr. Google and I go, wait a minute, this is what I see. And I think the way I approach, my patients, their families, friends, colleagues, I say, look, we're all one person. We're one body. Each of our bodies are our own universe. And yes, our rite of passage into medical school was gross anatomy. And yes, we then do our training, just decide which organ we want to align ourselves with. But my job is to say, no, we're one person. We're going to treat your loved one in total. So it's not just about the heart and the lungs. It's about nutrition. It's about their psyche, right? Because if you have somebody who's depressed, people don't realize depression adds more stress, and stress, right? And you know this, it stimulates our cortisol levels, our adrenaline. And what do these two, hormones and chemicals do in our body?
Make us fat.
Exactly. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but I'll let you have that one. But yes, we can go on and on.
We can go on.
But you can take two people with the exact same
Yeah.
struggles, and the one that is more relaxed and a little bit better outline, it does affect our immune system. But it's healthcare is a beast, and I'm not even talking about the pathways and the financial aspects. It's just understanding what's going on to our bodies, and can we go backwards, right? And back to when it was good.
Well, and I think what I think is really interesting, and I come from more of a spiritual, holistic. I'm a Chinese medicine person. I like the old medicine, and I appreciate the new medicine. But yeah. I find with the old medicine, you are trained, advised, and guided by your doctor to be self-aware and able to really know your body.
Yes.
Whereas Western medicine kind of, to me, makes you codependent. Oh, you don't know. I know everything. I went to school for 20 some odd years.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
No, and I know, and that's why you're on the show.
Okay,
That's why you're on the show. That's it. But for me personally, why I have this show is to have people recognize that the mind, body, and soul
yes.
need to have balance. And if you are depressed, you're going to ache. And if you are depressed, you're going to eat more. So your gut's going to be more gassy or more, nervous. If you are not sleeping well, your cortisol is going to raise because your body thinks it's in fight or flight. If you're not able to sit back and have gratitude and be gracious, then you're feeling guilt and shame and all of this other stuff, which is going to affect all of these other stuff. And then I feel like my Jewish grandmother going, oh my God, I got a goiter this big. So it's all a process, and I love, and we're going to get to you in a second, but I love the fact that you are able to integrate the holistic approach. And I want to know the truth, because I know there's truth here. It's got to be really hard for you because not a lot of doctors are on board yet.
It is hard. I mean, there's so much I want to say behind that. It's a roller coaster of emotions. When I go from one room to another, I tell my students that you don't even realize what you're going to go through. In one room, it can be pure elation, happiness, and next room, it's complete devastation and loss, right? But what's the most difficult is trying to reprogram people's ways of thinking about health. And how much is it really in our hands? Just because I may have an MD doesn't mean that I'm God. It doesn't mean that all the technology that we have available to us is going to patch us back to a time before we even started our journey to where we are now. So one of my jobs is to try to release that stress from my patients and their families, and let them know that, what can you do? You can love, you can be supportive, leave judgment outside the door. Whether someone's been drinking or smoking or having more weight than they should or whatever it may be, there's a reason why we identify ourselves as family, blood, or otherwise, and that is for this time to be present, to be soulful, to say, look, every day is a blessing. How do we take those next steps? And if we see that those next steps are not going to get us home, how do you even begin to think about that, right? What are your opportunities in the living versus after the loss?
And I think that's where Stoicism was so phenomenal back in the Grecian times. To be Stoic, you were able to be an observer rather than an absorber. And that training, that characteristic, I think has gone to the wayside, and there are very few elders who appreciate and teach Stoicism as an observer versus an absorber. And we're very touchy-feely, mushy-gushy people. No matter how ornery a person is, and no matter how pissed off they are, you can squeeze them and find some light in there, right?
Absolutely.
And I know you see it all the time. But how do we as a society go from taking our medical professionals for granted, and as medical professionals not embracing the holistic approach? There's a balance there, and I think what's translating right now is really a cry for, hey, we've got to do better, and we've got to be a better community around this.
Absolutely. And that comes with a partnership, and that comes with understanding that we're, how do we get to that same page, right? As I mentioned, a physician can be like, boom, 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 this is what I'm going to do for you. And the patient's like, well, wait a minute, but this is why I came to you, right? And how do you integrate that? And there's another thought that you stimulated, and that is, first I'm gonna forget it. I'm so like, as you're talking, it's just still like all these thoughts, and it's putting me right in in that motion. But bottom line is we're all people, right? We just need to walk this walk together. We have to find ways to communicate, to be empathetic, sympathetic, respectful. Because if you don't have that, you've lost that conversation. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, our society is very litigious, right? And as you know, as healthcare providers and professionals, we're always under that cloud of, well, am I gonna get sued? So maybe let me just stay in my lane. Let me just talk about the kidneys, because you know what? Somebody else can take care of the other parts of the body. But that does such a disservice to the patient. I'm also, I've been a physician for over 20 years. I have a lot of mantras, a lot of sayings. You just pick these things up from other people. And, once upon a time I thought I was going to be a surgeon, and that's a whole story in itself. But I remember when I was doing transplant surgery in NYU, there was this amazing liver transplant surgeon that I met. And he said, Manisha, I want to tell you something, that no matter what you do, even if you're in surgery, you have to have a strong foundation, right? And that foundation is in internal medicine. It's knowing your medicine. It's knowing the person. You can't turn a blind eye to the rest of the patient. You don't need to know everything. But that algorithm of thought, of appreciating the person as one, inside and out, has to be there. Otherwise, you're going to miss the very essence of what you're doing for that patient. So I like to say people, my role were that point guard or that quarterback or whatever that may be, where you chart that plan. But everything that you do, you should know why you're ordering, why you're touching the patient, whatever it is. And then you bring those super specialists on board as well, because they've done a little deeper dive in certain areas, and you bring everybody together. But it has to be teamwork. It has to be holistic. There has to be that communication to the patient, that we're there for them. It's okay to have dissension among the ranks, right, in healthcare, because I feel that with that, people are thinking, and we're going to get to where we need to be. But we're in a litigious society. It puts a lot of fears from the moment you enter. I'm talking about our hospital. The moment you enter our hospital, people are thinking constantly, all right, I know what I need to do, but what's all the other things I need to do to prove that I've done it, right? And you missed the mark. I apologize. I get a little winded by that. I'm very passionate about, my mission. It's been a mission for me. It really has. But I've also learned,
I think it's very difficult because America has made something that I strongly believe should not be for profit. I don't believe that I think that's a conflict of interest. I know that there's a particular organization here in Florida. It's an association that wants all of the specialists that they have to see patients every 15 minutes. Being on the front line, especially if you're dealing with this crazy ass redhead who is on her business, it's going to be longer than a 15-minute conversation.
Yeah.
And the doctors here actually get penalized for going over that 15 minutes. And for me, I don't think that's healthcare. I think that's pocket care. And that, in my belief system, makes it a society in which we can't trust our doctors, because you're going to miss something because the conversation was shortened.
Yeah.
Not everybody can articulate as well because we're not taught to be better patients, right?
Yeah. So true. So true. That's the hardest thing, is to just listen. And another mentor of mine, Dr. Harvey, he's one of the grandfathers when it comes to cardiology. And I had the pleasure of having him as one of my attendings when I was at Georgetown as a resident. And I remember I was post-call, exhausted, tired. It was the critical care unit for cardiology. And he's like, Dr. Singal, come, we're going to go talk to this family. I'm like, okay, fine. You don't say no to Dr. Harvey, right? Go in, we sit with the family, and he said, put your watch away. I'm like, okay. He's like, take your watch off, put it away, and we're going to position ourselves where you can't see the clock. And I can tell you the lessons I've learned from that, both good and yeah, it doesn't fit the 15-minute model whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it taught me the importance of focusing on the person that is asking for our help.
Yeah.
Giving them that time. I mean, there's a way to make it flow so you can give other people time. But that is not the bread and butter routine infrastructure of healthcare.
Yeah, I know. So if I remember correctly, you have a book coming out.
Yes, I actually just got published. Thank you. And
you have it on you?
I do.
Show it off, girl.
You know that I have to tell you, this is an area where it's been really hard for me. I'm not used to, I'll just be honest, I'm not used to self-promoting, but I love the journey I had before I even knew I was going to write the book. And writing the book was very in line of my wanting to educate and tell people what is not in balance. But I don't know if you can see it. It's called the Cbd Skincare Solution.
Woohoo!
And just got published. Thank you. So I had a skin reaction to hair dye a few years ago. And it was
not a surprise. If you've ever read the back of that box, girl, it would make Chernobyl look like cotton candy.
You know, I was like the millions that just go in, and I was getting ready for a wedding. I wanted my hair to have some color and some highlights. Oh. And with that, I had a 6-month journey of just like pain and suffering. I couldn't sleep at night, going to my colleagues for help. The very medications, I'm very medication adverse for a number of reasons. I was being prescribed and I still couldn't get my relief. Around the same time, I was already studying non-toxic solutions, CBD, and I discovered that CBD has great anti-inflammatory properties, and this is in science. So I was like, all right, my rash is inflammation. CBD is a great anti-inflammatory, non-toxic potential solution. Two together, and I still remember my shock. I'm like, did that really just happen? Did my redness really just go away? Did I get over that hump and I could actually sleep better? And then I started doing a deep dive. I traveled around the country. I was meeting mothers with children who had seizures. I was meeting vets who needed medication, alternatives for the opioids that they were on, advocates who were doing great work for years and years, more so than I ever was aware of, meeting scientists and doctors. And so when I wrote this book, I was like, you know, I just want to put my voice out there. There's so many bright people out there already doing this work. But I wanted to talk about my story and also about, you know, where are we? What's that balance? What are the studies that, you know, we can take some information from? But also as a physician, what's a safe way to either step into this arena or not? So, yeah, so it was quite, I feel like everyone should write a book first of all. Can I say this? That's my next thing I'm telling everybody. Everybody has a story that they can write about.
They do.
But yeah, so it is called the Cbd Skincare Solution. And I would be so honored if those who listen to us talking would take a moment, buy my book, read it, reach out to me, leave a review. Again, it's educational. It's a quick read, and I tried not to make it in doctor speak. So if I did use a technical word, you'll know immediately what it is. You don't have to go to Dr. Google to discover it.
Translate.
To translate it. Exactly. We all go to Dr. Google now, so.
I love the fact that you are, you know, a 20-year practicing physician in Western medicine. You obviously shine through with a holistic approach. And I love the fact that you are promoting CBD because it is a long, old, ancient medicine for
Yeah.
thousands of years that has been pushed aside because of profits. And it's really exciting to me to watch this ancient medicine come back to life, and to watch how many people. I've had people on the show that stopped drinking alcohol, like severe alcoholics, by using CBD oils.
Yes.
And it replaced the behavior, and it replaced that neurotransmission that asks
Imbalance.
imbalance.
Chemical imbalances that we all go through for various reasons. Yes.
So a big high five to you. You earned
you.
a couple of extra stars from me because
Thank
holistic
you.
is very important to me. And I think, pharmaceuticals have their place for some things, but it's not the first thing we should go to.
Do you, I don't know how prevalent it is now, it's still to some degree. I grew up in a time where if you had a sore throat, the first thing everyone thought of was strep throat. And the moment you had a sore throat and you thought about strep throat, it's like, well, call your doctor, get that prescription immediately for antibiotics, right? And it's just like that. And
my household is we go straight to whiskey and honey or hot tea.
I love it.
You got a sore throat, that honey will get it out. If it does, the hot will.
Honestly, but so I love my parents, and they were doing what everybody else was doing. Senior year in high school, I was telling somebody I would not be here talking to you if it wasn't for the fact that by some miracle I had a sore throat. Senior year high school finals. So the first thing my family was saying, "Oh my God, you may have strep throat. We have an antibiotic. Take this, we'll call your doctor the next morning." So I'm like, all right, fine. I'm a high school student.
Right.
Take the medication, and suddenly I was like, oh my God, I feel so wonderful. Like my soreness is gone. It was a miracle. And for some reason I went to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. It was like Elephant Man, only my face I couldn't recognize my face. My whole face was swollen and distorted. Almost like a Picasso. Maybe that's a better reference.
Yeah.
So I literally, we were living in a house that was 2 levels, stairs at the top. Got to the bottom of the stairs. My father happened to walk out of the bedroom. Instead of using the bathroom in their bedroom, he wanted to use the bathroom that was at the top of the stairs. Because I still remember seeing his underwear. And he looked down, and I guess he saw me. And from that moment on, honestly, if it took them 5 more minutes to get to the emergency room, I must say this with like tears in my eyes, I wouldn't have been here.
Wow.
But that shaped me.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, even though I wasn't in medical school or in college yet, was, medications can be dangerous. They can be deadly. Even Tylenol, people don't realize.
Yeah.
So whether it's over the counter, whether it's prescribed, even if it's homeopathic, right? There is no more, anything can cause risk. So yes, I am a doctor. I work in the ICU. My patients are on no less than an average of 15 to 20 medications. Mm-hmm. And what my team and I are doing constantly is trying to pull back, dial back, take those drugs off. But because we know that oftentimes the very pills that we think we need, there's pills to counteract the effects of the pills that were being prescribed. But anyway, that was a windy response to a trigger of a memory. But
no, that's why I host the show the way that I do, because it's the real you, it's the authentic you, it's what the ooey gooey on the inside of you is. Why did you become a doctor? Well, now we know you almost died because your parents did what parents do. We try to do the best we can.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't intentional or hurtful or mean. They just thought this would work, and
everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
It was the right thing to do.
Yep. What, are you allergic to sulfa?
Penicillin.
Okay. Yeah. So I kind of figured that's why you turned.
It was penicillin. I don't remember what the name of the medication was. It was either amoxicillin or augment. I have no idea, but it was penicillin.
Yeah. Yeah, I have friends that are allergic to either penicillin or the sulfa in penicillin. And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, oh yeah, I've seen that reaction. So I knew mommy radar. So tell us where we can find you, because we're at the very end
Oh,
of
we
our,
are?
I
Oh,
know,
wow. I
it
didn't
goes by
realize
so fast.
it goes by so fast. Oh boy, oh boy. All right, well, so I have a website. I can't believe I actually have a website, but I put this website together in 2 weeks, so please forgive me, but it's called Doc Singal, DOCSINGAL, at Gmail. Oh boy, I should know my, yeah, docsingle.com.
.com.
Yeah, so Manisha at docsingle.com. Oh, wow. It's very new, everybody. Otherwise, my name is Manisha Singal. I can send you my email address. Again, my book is the Cbd Skincare Solutions on Amazon. And I'm very approachable, so.
So I'm going to invite you back on to talk about the book itself now that we found out that you are really authentically beautiful as I was born. And I want to get into a little bit about CBD because, again, this is an up and coming world
Really
where we're learning ancient medicine in new times. And I think there's a lot of confusion surrounding it, a lot of myths that could be dispelled, which I'm sure you do in the book.
Can I leave you in your viewership one thought? And that is CBD is a cannabinoid. And what we discovered not too long ago is that we produce our own cannabinoids from birth. So that's a really interesting thought for people to understand that what we're ingesting or using from the plant mirrors what we've been producing in our body since birth. So I'll leave you with that thought because it's pretty intriguing.
I like the fact that Jesus is my homie and cannabis is actually my cousin. This is great.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I would be so honored to come back and talk about anything.
I had a lot of fun with you today, and you're watching Living and Thriving with Rustie, and it's 175 beautiful minds that we're going to run through over the next few months. And she's going to come back on and we'll actually stick to the script and talk about the book.
Okay,
all right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Know that you're loved. Know that you're beautiful. Know that your neighbor needs, you know, cotton candy or a water balloon or maybe a flower. You know, this is kind of the time where we need to just sit back and rub our bellies and be grateful for food and sunshine and the beauty of rain and what rain does and all of the animals. If you live in the tropics like I do with thousands of lizards, you know, they're fun to watch. They're really interesting. But what's more interesting is that you're granted another moment to be alive, another moment to breathe, another moment to dream, another moment to contemplate whether or not lizards have belly buttons. That's how small my world is. Until next time.
Bye.